Do you know that one thing that as time goes on, I start to notice more and more as an anime fan? That thing being the hollowness of a main character. Sure, the main character can have values and aspirations similar to our own. The want to be good or the want to save people, or the desire to not be stopped by our failure, etc. But the more I think about those values, the more I start to notice that they're just general values that most people have. They're things that as people we connect with. And if you think about some of these characters, that's all they really have. A surface level hope or belief, but nothing within it. That's why shows like Ranker of Kings or Mob Psycho are so unique and amazing. Well, there was one other show that came to mind when it comes to shows that go against the main tropes of a main character. But it's been so long since I last seen it. What are the odds that it succeeded when facing this problem head on? Classroom of the Elite took so many of us by storm when we first watched it. At the time, it filled in a slot of compelling drama and slice of life that carved out what it means to thrive in the cutthroat new world of business and scheming. As the story went, the main character started at a school that was home to Japanese best and brightest, students that were all extremely talented. The main character being what a lot of us were used to. Little to no expression or remarkable detail. Easier to animate maybe? Perhaps it's easier for us to imprint ourselves when there's less distinguishable features? But as the story went on, we all started to see certain tells. A lot of us started to put together, okay, so the main character is special and holding back, right? An interesting takeaway, but it's not exactly new, right? As the story progressed, you've seen the main character helping people, guiding them without any need for validation. Maybe some of us started to actually root for him, even though we were frustrated that he kept holding back. But then it happened. After one of the biggest big brain plays on the last episode, we finally get to peek into his mind. And what we find is an emotionally detached, manipulative, sociopathic, and in a lot of ways, utterly ruthless main character. And everyone collectively smiled at that very moment, where the camera zooms into his cold, blooded stare as he describes how he feels nothing, he doesn't regret anything, he sees everyone as nothing but a pawn or a tool or an object. Now, a lot of us weren't completely crazy. It was just refreshing to see. The main character wasn't outwardly good. He wasn't even virtuous in any way. Every single thing he did had a plan and a reaction that he desired. It wasn't through kindness or hope. We started to realize that we weren't watching the story of a hero, we were watching a story, potentially, from the villain's perspective. And then it was put on hiatus because the anime was made to sell mangas, and whenever that usually happens, it means that there's probably not going to be a season 2 unless the mangas come finished, and in comes 2022. It's here, baby. Everyone is freaking out. In the comments of every single Crunchyroll clip on YouTube, everyone is having an all-out love fest with the anime being back. Seeming like the entire community not only wants to bang the voice actor of Deku, but also has severe daddy issues. Girls and guys alike simping harder than Pseudo for Suzune. But with all that hype around the show, I was left wondering one question. What do they do now? Do they lean in, or do they try to make him more approachable, give him some sort of values that we connect with, redeem him in some way? And well, based on what I've seen from the community, I think I got my answer. They leaned in. Wasting no time with season 2, we are thrown into even more tests against the rival classes and get to see just how numb the main character is. But in the same way that heroes in anime are basic, the same can be said for villains. If someone is evil for the sake of evil, they are equally as hollow. The main character isn't evil necessarily, but he is very, very numb. And as season 2 progresses, we get hints why. I guess the best way to say it is the main character demonstrates sociopathic tendencies. But instead of him using that numbness to go on a rampage, he is instead governed by logic and philosophy, these things seemingly anchoring him in some way. But that does not stop him from doing some really up stuff and manipulative as hell, so many things. So, if the main character is that bad, why do people like the show? Because it's honest. The show never tells you to think highly of him. It never tells you what he's doing is right. It also never tells you or shows you that there was a nice happily ever after ending, because all of this doesn't matter. This is a story, not ours. his. And that's the beauty of storytelling. We don't always need to feel empowered or even to feel like we are imprinting ourselves on the main character. If they offer an interesting and in some ways uncomfortable, real perspective on how this character affects the people around him, as well as the story, then that's what makes a great story. In this story, we see him destroy people who are suffering, push people that consider him to be a friend to their absolute breaking point, just so he can better use them in the future. He is not necessarily a good guy, but the more I think about it, I don't think he is the bad guy either. Let me explain. The storyboard for Classroom of the Elite seems to be, let's tell a story that goes against the classic main character tropes. Let's make a story with the main character being a sociopath. But if we're truly going against these tropes, then we have to go all the way. End of storyboard. You see, there's one more trope that exists within the main character archetype of anime. And an anime that handles fixing this trope perfectly is Mob Psycho 100%. And the remedy to this trope that Mob Psycho brings is change. True change. Think about it. If you look at most anime characters, shonen or isekai, who are they at the end? I mean, as far as their values and internal beliefs. So rarely do they actually change. The hero doesn't decide that he wants to become the villain at the end. At most, we just get some upgrades along our journey and he becomes OP. And don't get me wrong, that's fun, that's awesome, can be very enjoyable. But it doesn't go against the theme of pushing back against all these tropes. So, what does this have to do with the main character not being a bad guy? Well, in season 2, I think the author is doing the same thing that they were doing in the first season. At the beginning of season 1, we were all under the impression that the main character was just a classic good guy. And at the end, the veil was lifted and we got to see how truly corrupt he is. Shit. Well, I think we are going to get the same bait and switch eventually. Now, to be honest, I might just be on that I can fix him kind of energy. Sorry. Rough. But I'm not sure if you noticed in season 2, but there were a lot of choices around Kurosawa, like the camera angles, the zooms on the birthday gift that she wants to give the main character, and things like that. Almost, it's like shot in a way that you could watch this again and be like, oh, the same way the first season was shot, like, when you have a key, it unlocks the doors. Now, you don't see those doors until you have the payoff or the key, but in this case, I think you can start to see some of those doors. Anyway, and how he goes about spending time with her, how she's like the only one that gives him a Christmas gift, and I think they were alluding to her wanting to give him a birthday gift or something. And not only that, but she has seen all of him, every twisted part, and weirdly accepts him for those broken and weird parts. This was something I was happy to see that other people also seen, especially in the Crunchyroll comments. The idea being, so the main character is supposed to be a sociopath, right? He's okay with manipulating people because that's all he's ever known. Well, the question is, how would a sociopath show they care? And how would they justify to themselves their actions? And therein lies the complete achievement of going against the trope. We are not watching a story where the main character is the villain, but instead a story of how a person who might be, or definitely have, sociopathic tendencies to learn to feel. Or in some ways, maybe live? Perhaps that's why there's so much underlying philosophy within the show. And this is further supported by the ending remarks by the main character. He says, and I quote, "I wonder will I ever see those around me as more than just pawns." Wow, that really only sounds cool and coming out of Deku's mouth, Jesus. There's a lot of philosophy and pathology in the show. And ultimately, I think in the next couple seasons, we're going to continue to see him be as useful and as sociopathic as he has been. And slowly, little by little, we'll see that his actions towards the people around him, the people that are truly good and there for him, are less and less strategic and more justifications for feelings he doesn't know how to describe. So he describes them in the best way he knows how. Pawns, tools, objects, scheming, etc. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm on that I can change him bullshit energy like I was mentioning a minute ago. Also, oh my God, we talked so long. I want to say so many more things. I want to talk to you so much more about some stuff. Quickly, first of all, the last couple episodes of season 2, what a fire as hell fight scene, dude. Also, the audacity of this bit, Also, round of applause for how much better this season felt. It felt so much more flushed out. We've seen so many more characters. I feel like we covered so much more ground. We got that whole backstory with the character's dad, some further development of the White Room. And to be honest, I thought they would develop the relationship between the brunette girl, Suzune, but as more time passes, I think she's more of a like little sister character, or if anything, a prodigy, and less a love interest. However, on the topic of love interest, in a weird way, I think that based on all the things we've seen in this series, it just supports the ponytail girl, Kurosawa, being the main girl, if you want to say it that way. Well, bang, didn't get to tell you everything, but well, I hope I'm right about the overall story being about psychology as well as philosophy, ultimately being about the complexity of what it means for a person with sociopathy to live a life of harmony and meaning. That was a lot, I'm sorry. Anyways, the good news is that we are definitely getting a season 3 of Classroom of the Elite. I'm crossing my fingers that at least it's not 5 or 6 years away like the previous season. Anyways, subscribe if you want. Love you. Bye. Girls and guys alike simping harder than what's his fucking people's name. But there were a lot of choices around the... God damn it. Fucking hell. Goddamn names.